Buckland didn't know it at the time, but he was about to discover more than some ancient animal bones. This was going to be the discovery of his life.
Entering the cave would have been fantastically exciting for Buckland. As soon as he crossed the threshold, he'd have fired up his lamp, and then, a good scientist that he was, he'd have begun to make a careful assessment of everything he could see, the whole scene, and all of that he recorded in meticulous detail. This is a book called Reliquiae Diluviani, Relics of the Flood, and this volume is one of just a couple of copies of the first edition still in existence. It contains within it a depiction of the scene exactly as Buckland saw it and then drew it. Buckland has very helpfully drawn the whole scene. There's the cave itself from the outside, there's the cliff wall and the man coming down on a rope on the outside. But more interestingly, he's made what is effectively an excavation plan of the floor of the cave. Here are the elephant bones and tusks that drew him to this cave in the first place. More intriguingly, he's also drawn a full-size human skeleton, and it's that human skeleton that secured this cave its place in our history. It was Buckland himself who discovered it, uncovering it from beneath about 6 inches of earth, right here where I'm crouched down. What on earth was going on here? And more importantly, who on earth was it? As it happened, Buckland originally thought he'd found the remains of a local prostitute who had worked here during Roman times, and that when she'd eventually died, she'd been buried in there, far away from civilised society. The Red Lady of Paviland.
But Buckland was wrong, because he'd actually stumbled upon human remains from a far more distant past. Today, the Red Lady is kept at the Oxford University Museum of Natural History. Although there's no skull, much of the skeleton has survived, enough for scientists to reveal its story.
Within a few decades of Buckland's death, people re-examined the skeleton. They looked at the shape of the pelvis, the shape of the long bones, the shape of the articulation surfaces. Any anatomy student today would recognise this as a skeleton not of a young woman, but of a young man.
Forensic analysis also revealed that the so-called Red Lady died young, in his late 20s. But most importantly, his bones could also reveal just how long ago he lived.
All plants and animals on Earth build themselves predominantly out of carbon. A tiny proportion of that carbon is radioactive carbon, or carbon-14. When an animal dies, the amount of carbon-14 begins slowly to decline and degrade away.
This process, called carbon dating, used a tiny amount of bone from the Red Lady. Carbon atoms from the bone gave scientists a date for when he was alive. An astonishing 33,000 years ago. These are the remains of the very first modern human known to have inhabited our land.